Hello and welcome to the Glen Arbor Community Church channel. We are a group of people who are eagerly pursuing the spread of the gospel of Jesus Christ from our corner of West Chicago, Illinois to the ends of the earth. This week, Pastor Dean Klapatch continues our series on the Blood of the Covenant as he teaches on life and the eternal covenant.
We are wrapping up or coming into land, I guess, this week and next week on this series looking at Lifeblood and what is God doing? What was He planning in dealing with sin, and how did He do that? And how does it relate to blood and God putting life and the life in the blood? So we're going to look today at this connecting lifeblood and the eternal covenant. And I didn't know that much really before we looked at this of what an eternal covenant was, even what a biblical covenant was. So I'm assuming that you may be a little like me. So we're going to look at what is a biblical covenant. There's several in the Bible, and we're going to look at that first, and then we'll pray and look at some examples in what that might mean for us. So a biblical covenant has 7 unique properties or aspects, but there's 4 that are dominant and 3, in my opinion, that are a result of how God has chosen to do them. So a covenant, a contract with God, is initiated by Him. It is His idea. It's His initiation. God will say, I will do this. So it doesn't work, hey, God, I want to work out this contract with you. So a biblical covenant comes from Him. Second aspect, there's a binding promise from the Lord. There's something that He is going to do. He's saying this is something that will come to pass. It's often ratified or sealed with blood. There's something involved, blood and a blood sacrifice, that is very common in a biblical covenant. 4, there's responsibilities in the covenant on both sides. If you're going to participate in this covenant, there's things you have to do, or any person in any one of these. Some of these we're going to look at go back into the Old Testament, and there's things people had to do to participate in the covenant. 3 other ones, and there's going to be a test on this later as we look at them, so we're going to work through these just so you're paying attention here. 3 others, and these are, in my opinion, a result of how God does this, has chosen to do it. Sometimes there's a sign or a symbol of the covenant, and we'll look at examples of those. There is a witness or a public declaration. There's not like a secret. I made this secret pact or contract that nobody knows about. When God does a biblical covenant, it is announced, it is known to the group it applies to. And last but not least, usually part of the covenant involves how God is going to bless, or sometimes it's not always a blessing. Some people, there's a curse or that goes along with the covenant. So, okay, everyone got a good look at that. You ready? Because this slide's going to go away, and now we go into the testing phase. Are you all sitting down? Looks good. Okay, here we go. How about if we pray for a minute? Lord, thank you for a chance to look at this and understand what it means when you establish a pathway into the future through a covenant. And it's kind of a new thing to us. Even though we're part of it, it's something at least I haven't reflected on. I pray that you help us to understand your ways today. Amen. I'm going to go back and look at some of the older covenants. We're not going to look at all of them. And we're going to look at Noah. Does anyone remember what happened in the days of Noah? There was a flood. So what happened was, let's see if I can get this to move here. Oops, I'm ahead of myself. What happened was, and to put these up here, I've had to put a little part of it because a lot of these covenants are covered in several chapters, and that doesn't fit here, so you know that. But God had said mankind had become so evil, that it had been so egregious, that God was going to start over, and he picked one family, Noah's family. He says, everyone else is going to be destroyed, even the animals, except for the select few, and we're just going to start over with mankind. But here was after this was the covenant that God made with Noah. I establish my covenant with you, that never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of the flood, and never again shall there be a flood to destroy the earth. So what's the promise? Right, he's not going to use that method again, right? And he made a sign. Anyone remember the sign of God's covenant, that he wasn't going to do the rainbow? So the rain starts to subside, and the rainbow comes out to say, there aren't 39 more days of rain coming. That the judgment of God is not going to judge in this way again. This was a one-time thing, a one-time approach of God doing that. That was the covenant that we still see the effects of today. Next covenant, we're going to look at Abraham. Now, this is in the beginning. This is God telling, he was called Abram then, his name hadn't been changed, what he is going to do. So God promised this to him. He says, go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land I will show you. So he's giving Abram and his family, his children. Now, for Abraham to participate in this, Abraham has a responsibility. What does Abraham have to do? He has to move. He has to move. Now, what if Abram said, hey, I know where all the stores are around here. I know the neighborhood. I like it here. You know, I have my own fields, and my camels and donkeys, they stay over there, and I I don't want to go. To participate in God's plan, he has to have faith and trust and say, okay, I will go. Honey, we're moving. All the kids are moving. All the relatives, all of us are going, right? This is the promise, or part of the promise. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and I will dishonor those who curse you. Look at this last part. All the families of the earth, in you, all the families of the earth shall be blessed. That's quite a promise. All mankind, all the families of the earth will be blessed. Now, this is God's plan of how he's going to use this process. That kind of has a little bit of an eternal nature to it, doesn't it? I have a plan that's bigger than you moving. God is going to use this covenant, this agreement, this contract, not just for him, but for other families, for other people that Abraham could never really realize. He just knows there's a promise. He's not going to see that in his lifetime. It is going to benefit other people. So, I'm going to give you a guess. Which covenant is next after Abraham? Anyone guess? Wow, sorry. You guys are good. We're going to get to David. There's one in between, still in Exodus. I remember Exodus? Moses? Oh, yes, Moses. we have. Now, the one in Moses, I had to pick 2 verses to fit on the screen. It is several chapters. This, if you remember, God gave the law to Moses, right? Gave the law to the people, and he read it to them. And so this is in Exodus. Then he took the book of the covenant, the book of the covenant, the book of the agreement of God's people, and read it in the hearing of people, and they said, all the Lord has spoken, we will do. We will be obedient. We will do that. Now, right before this, there were many sacrifices. There were many animals sacrificed, and they poured half the blood on the altar. You know what they did with the other half? And Moses took the blood and threw it on the people. This is a pretty dramatic part of their church service, wouldn't you think? Would make an impression. How did church go today, honey? How come your clothes are all red? Behold, the blood of the covenant that the Lord has made in accordance with all these words. So, the covenant was bound in blood. The animals were sacrificed. They said, this is a significant, serious thing you are committing to. Your obedience to these laws is very serious. I'm sure, well, I can't say I would think many people left with that impression. I would think so. A very unusual event. So after Moses, we go to David. And we're just hitting the highlights here. We're not going to cover every covenant. We're going to cover, I think, 5. Yeah, 5 today. Just trying to see some of these principles with David. And this is in 2 Samuel. When your days are fulfilled and you lie down with your fathers, I will raise up your offspring who shall come from your body. And I will establish his kingdom. He shall build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. So what is the promise? He's saying, I'm going to use your family line to establish a kingdom forever. So he's in some of these covenants, there's an aspect of eternity that God is working his way towards. So he's saying, out of your family, a throne will rule forever. Out of your bloodline, out of your family, I will raise that up. And that was one of the promises he made to David. Now we live in what's called the eternal covenant, and it's interesting, it was also the new covenant. It was new, it changed. So one of the things that happened is that in all of these older covenants, there were sacrifices that had to be done over and over again. And in Jeremiah 31, there's a prophecy that a day is coming when that will be over. It will be different from the old covenant. It will be changed. And these are 3 things. And there's more, but there's 3 things that are mentioned here in the covenant that was coming. God's law will be written on people's hearts. In Moses' covenant, he brought the law on stone tablets to the people. It was outside. It was outside of the person. The eternal covenant, if you become a Christian, if you believe in him, you have God's Spirit. You will know your conscience. He will lead you into all truth. A change, one of the big changes, the law will be written on people's hearts. There was exhortation to know the Lord in all the old covenants, to pursue the Lord and know of him and know of his works. In the eternal covenant, the temple was torn, the veil of the temple was torn, and there's a personal relationship with God. Personal relationship. Personal knowledge of God. And the last one, which we're familiar with, and Greg is going to talk about next week, of how this process works. The complete forgiveness of sins. Complete forgiveness of sins. That is a big change. The need to the need to make other offerings for what you did. There's a pastor on the radio. He's not on the radio anymore, but I remember listening to him when I was younger, and he focused a lot on grace and how grace works. And I love the way he did this. He explained it. He says, you know how sometimes you feel guilty for things and you just carry that with you? Sometimes you can't get over it. You carry it around. What is this? What is that? And you feel bad. And you bring it to God, and you go, God, I feel bad about this sin. And God is going, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? You've been washed clean. What are you carrying that around for? What do you mean? In my eyes, you have been washed clean. Complete forgiveness of sin. This is a big change in the covenant we live in. Paul mentioned this in Ephesians 1. Even as he chose us. Now he's speaking to the Ephesians, but I believe this applies to all Christians. He chose the Ephesians and he chose us too in him before the foundation of the world. Before the world was formed, it was God's plan. What was God's plan? That we should be holy and blameless before him. Before him, you are holy and blameless. There is complete forgiveness. Yeah, I don't feel real good today. That's true. That is how you feel. Maybe you do feel really good today. It's based on his work and not how we feel. He predestined us for adoption to himself as sons through Jesus Christ, according to the purpose of his will. It was God's eternal plan to bring people, to bring you, if you've trusted in Jesus Christ for your forgiveness, to this place, to be holy and blameless. So I've looked at this a little bit and thinking about how this works with me and some of my own struggle of sometimes I feel really good and sometimes I don't feel as good about how things are going, and I can look a lot at my circumstance and I go, well, why do I struggle with that as in looking at how things are going and how that affects my relationship with God? And I had an opportunity I wanted to reflect on this, and I want to share this a little bit with you because I'm hoping this adds a little dimension to this. So I was recently, actually this last week, I was in Metropolis, Illinois. Now, when you think of Metropolis, what do you think of? Well, when I was in Metropolis, the town has a little thing, because the name of the town is Metropolis. And I ran into Superman. I ran into Superman there in Metropolis, and I took a picture. I said, can I take a picture? And I will show this to you here. See if I can pull this up. There's Superman, right? So there's Superman. So sometimes, and I know you're different from me, I approach life in my own strength, and I feel really good sometimes about what I can accomplish or what I do or how I'm doing. And this is very common in our modern culture, this be self-sustaining and self-sufficient and look to myself and that's really what Superman is. He is nearly indestructible. And I did get a picture of the other Superman there. Yeah, so that's in Metropolis, so both of us together, right? So, and but in my approach, sometimes we approach our Christian lives with this perspective just a little bit, that I have to do well, I have to perform, and how my status with who God is a little like this, right? A little like this. How well am I doing, right? I was working out a little bit. So So there's a little park there. This is right on the Illinois-Kentucky border, pretty far, I think almost as far south as you can go in Illinois. And there's a big river that divides the two states, and there's barge traffic. And I went out by the river and thinking about it. And I often think of the water as representing God. And there's a boat ramp by the river, just processing these things. So I did this, and then the Lord told me, go out by the river. I said, okay. I found this boat ramp, which was closed for the winter. The boat ramp down by, and I'm going, well, I want to get to the water, right? The water. I want to get to the water. Here's the boat ramp. We have to go down and be in the water, be immersed in the water, if I take this analogy, if that's all right there. So if I go down and I walk down to the water and I want to get in, there's things in the way. There's things in the way. Now, there happen to be some, I don't know if you can see, there happen to be some logs there. You see those little logs there in the water? If I want to get in the water, there's these things in the way. Now, I am a little older now, and I can't lift those logs with my back. I probably could, but it would hurt me if I did. I can't get them out of the way. I can't lift them. What are my options if I want to get in the water and what are my options? Kick them, jump over them, lift them. I have to deal with this to get to the water. What am I going to do? Yeah, wait for the tide, but it's a river. Yeah, wait for the water. Maybe the water can carry them away. Maybe it's not me. Maybe it's not Superman, or was it Supergirl or Superwoman? I forget what's the... Maybe, yeah. So there are in any covenant relationship, go back to this, in this covenant relationship with God, there are responsibilities. We saw with Moses, there's obedience to the law. But for me to be part of the covenant, for you to be part of the covenant, I need to go back to my loyalty and understanding of this relationship. I need to have faith. You need to have faith. If I'm going to participate in this, I need to have faith that how does God do this and do it His way if I and you try to be Superman or is it girl? Whatever. So let's say there's logs in your life. Here. Whatever the logs are for you. There's logs in your life and you can't get them out of the way. If you go back to the covenant, what are you going to do? Maybe. Now, if you just focus on those logs and you just stare at them and go, these logs are in my way, they're a problem, I can't move them, what am I going to do? They've been here all winter and they're heavy and there's no one here to help me deal with this problem. I'm stuck here. If you go a little higher up from God's point of view, this is a little higher up. Can you see the logs? They don't look as big. What if you just pushed them out into the water? What if God in His ability is able to deal with all those things? Guilt, shame, problems you don't know how to solve. What if in your relationship with God, He is big enough, even if it doesn't make sense today? Because there's enough water, there's enough sacrifice, that He knew exactly what all those things are in your relationship, in your covenant relationship with Him. What if He is more than adequate? The things you didn't expect and the things you're struggling with. What if He is immensely adequate to deal with all those things? When you have doubts and struggle and stumble and don't feel too well. So somewhere in this relationship with God, we have to work this out. How do we let God do His part and not try to carry that ourselves? Let's go down to where we don't live up in the sky, we live on the ground. Let's go back to our boat ramp. Here's the boat ramp. What is in our way? These cones are in our way. Sometimes we have to do something to participate. You know what you can do? Let's see if I can move the cones. God has paved the way. One of the things that happen, let's go do that again. The cones are there, they're not. Sometimes we put things in the way, or we allow things to be in our way with our relationship, and they appear to be so significant. But our relationship, the pathway is open, and the pathway to Him is fully open for you and your relationship with Him. There's nothing in the way. There's nothing between you and Him. He has provided for that. That's what He wanted, a connected, personal relationship with you. So I want to wrap this up and go back to some of the promises, a little bit about the covenant we have. One is with God, that there is this is the difference in the new covenant. There's an eternal change in our hearts. You hear the truth, you know that's true. You know that's significant in your life because God's Spirit is in your life. There's a change on the inside of you. He is part of your life. If you've become a Christian, if you've done that, if you've taken that step, I hadn't taken that step till I was in my 20s. I didn't realize what that meant, but I've done that. And so there's a change from the inside. All the covenants before that were trying to change from the outside, and they failed repeatedly. The next one is you have a personal relationship with God. That's a big change. You have a personal connection, a personal relationship with God. The connecting with Him, the understanding of Him, the intimacy with Him. That He wants to tell you what to do. He wants to give good things to you. He desires to be connected with you in your life. And He will speak things that are so good to you. You know, it's funny in this situation, I went out to this park, and to be honest, the river, I go to a lot of nice places and take a lot of pictures, and I like to go to visually appealing places to take nice pictures. And I went out, I know this park because I've been there before, and the water's all muddy, and I felt like the Lord told me, go back to Fort Massac State Park early in the morning. And my first thought was, why? Why? I think it was to connect with this. The last part of God's covenant with you, or the last part we can go into, it is based on His work. If there are things in your life that are too big for you, if you're trying to be a little bit like Superman, and this is one of my weaknesses of doing things myself, if you're trying to carry that yourself a little bit, God has a plan that involves Him carrying the part that's too big for you. And He'll let you know in your relationship of what that is, and He'll use it for good. You may not know what that is right now, but it's based on His abilities and His work. I had one verse I wanted to share related to this. This is back to Ephesians 1:7. So I don't know if you run into this. You're thinking, well, the situation in my life is a little messy, or I don't feel forgiven. I'm discouraged or depressed, and I don't have that much hope for the future. Here's what it says, and here's what Paul told the Ephesians in Ephesians 1:7. In Him we have redemption through His blood, the forgiveness of our trespasses, according to the riches of his grace. Not according to how well I'm doing, or how strong I feel, or how bad I feel, according to what he did. Based there. So part of participating in the covenant is reflecting on that enough where we understand the truth. Why don't we pray? Lord, thank you for a chance to understand what you have done and how complete that is. Thank you for that you know we need to be reminded because we see things dimly. Thank you for a chance to worship you and hear from you together. Amen.
Thank you for watching our lesson today. We invite you to join us here at Glen Arbor Community Church every Sunday at 10 a.m. Our address is 204 Church Street in West Chicago, Illinois. For more information about our church, please visit us online at www.glenarborchurch.com or email us at info@glenarbor.org.